Hello and welcome back to Middle Class Reactions. It seems like Douglas Murray has responded to the whole Joe Rogan controversy with Dave Smith. I watched part of this, but haven't watched the full thing. Not Douglas's reaction. So let's see what he says.
Joining me now is best-selling author Douglas Murray. His latest book on democracies and death cults, Israel and the Future of Civilization, has just hit the shelves. And guess who was promoting this latest work? None other than the leader of the free world. President Donald Trump wrote, "My friend Douglas Murray just released a new book on democracies and death cults, and it is quickly becoming a bestseller. Based on his first-hand reporting, Douglas documents the barbarity of Hamas's brutal attack on Israel on October 7 and Israel's heroic response. The book serves as a strong reminder of why we must always stand up for America and our great friend and ally, Israel." A powerful read and a highly respected author. Get your copy today. Good Lord, Douglas, that is some endorsement. Did you have any inkling the president was going to do that?
I suppose I have to be careful what I say. I gave him a copy last week.
Well, clearly he's read the book and loved it. We know he doesn't sleep much, so he's read that very quickly. Douglas, you're making news again, not just writing and commenting on the headlines, but in the thick of it, thanks to a rather robust discussion you had on Joe Rogan's podcast. It's been the talk of X and elsewhere for days. There was a clash between yourself and Dave Smith, and you even took on the man who has the biggest audience, the biggest podcast audience in the world, Joe Rogan, on his own show.
I just feel, we should get it out straight away, I feel you've opened the door to quite a lot of people who've now got a big platform who have been throwing out counter-historical stuff of a very dangerous kind.
Douglas, you've had plenty of people praising your performance and agreeing with you, but there has also been criticism from those who say you are trying to silence debate and appealing to authority. You're appealing to the expert class, they say, and the expert class hasn't exactly been reliable of late.
Well, I conceded all of that in the discussion on Joe's podcast. I conceded that experts have got things wrong. Look at COVID and the lab leak. And I also said...
It's not that experts have got things wrong. Experts, quote unquote, experts have deliberately lied about, like he brings up COVID. The quote unquote experts of that straight up lied about what happened for years. So it's wild that I'm sure if you're watching this, I'm sure you've watched the debate on Rogan. He says, "Oh, I'm not saying that you shouldn't talk if you're not an expert, but since you're not an expert, you don't know what you're talking about." And then the experts that we have to look at just they haven't been doing good. And on top of that, Douglas Murray is not an expert. He has a degree in English. So he's no more an expert than Dave Smith or Daryl Cooper or whatever, or whomever. That's the funny thing about it.
I certainly am not shutting down debate. I'm involved in debate, so why would I be shutting it down? What I do believe, and what I think many people have completely failed to absorb, is the fact that just because the expert class has let itself down in places on occasion does not mean that lack of expertise is more desirable than expertise. And it does not mean that we should just have other ways of knowing about things that can be known about. The counterpart who Joe Rogan brought in for that debate seemed to think that, for instance, not going to a place that you're talking about was in some way a desirable thing. Whereas I, as a journalist, you as a journalist know that if we cover a story in a country, for instance, when you were covering the American election in 2020, as I was, you were in America. Why were you in America? Because you were covering the American elections. And if you'd have been just sitting in Australia covering the American elections, that wouldn't have had the validity that it does if you are in the country you are writing about.
So here's the issue. The issue with this one, he just completely lied about what Dave Smith said. Dave Smith didn't say at all, didn't even hint at that it would be preferable to not go somewhere. Douglas Murray brought up that, oh, you've never been to Israel, and then went on this entire tangent over it. And Dave's point was like, no, but I still can have an opinion on what's going on. Douglas Murray was the one who made such a big deal about that, not Dave Smith. That's the crazy thing about that. The second crazy thing about that, and you might have seen this as well, it's going viral right now, and I might make a video on it. Douglas Murray makes a great argument against himself from a couple of years ago of why that's a terrible argument. That's the funny thing about it. He disagrees with himself. And it's just it's so crazy to just come on somewhere like this it's a big news outlet in Australia, it's Sky News Australia, and just lie. Just straight up lie. And the host was real friendly, granted. Douglas Murray does come on here a lot, so she's being nice to him. But it isn't that, oh, a lot of people agree with Douglas Murray, but there are some critics. It's not that. I've looked on YouTube, I looked at Spotify comments, I looked at Twitter comments, the reaction videos to it. It is overwhelming that I would say the vast majority of people who've watched that debate came away from it going, even if you didn't agree with Dave Smith, coming away from it like, yeah, Douglas Murray just lost that debate and he beat himself. He just was making very bad faith arguments, and he's doing it again, man, which it sucks because before the Joe Rogan debate, I didn't necessarily just love Douglas Murray, but at least had some respect for him. Now, I mean, that's just gone.
I think this is a deliberate misunderstanding by people. Let me very quickly explain why. Joe Rogan is a big MMA guy. I probably know, or you probably know about as much about MMA as I do. You might surprise me, Rita. But if either of us went on his podcast and decided to spend the 3 hours talking about MMA, we would be found out pretty fast as not knowing what we were talking about. And at some point, Joe would cotton on to that. And he would say, I'm sorry, you seem not to know about this subject. Well, that's because it's a subject he knows a lot about. My simple point is that there is something very different happening if a host's platform repeatedly cranks with the same opinion as each other on very, very important questions and do not allow on contrary views, or very rarely.
Okay, and here's another one. And if I was Joe Rogan, I would probably sue him for defamation over this. It's not that Joe Rogan is not allowing someone to come on. He's acting like Joe's going, oh, I'm not going to let any one of these guys come on. Which, by the way, he has had multiple people on that are very, very pro-Israel and the complete opposite of Dave Smith's argument. And so, again, it's just a bad faith argument coming from Douglas Murray on this one.
For instance, to not have somebody on who is supportive of Ukraine as opposed to highly, highly critical of Ukraine since 22 seems to me to be a big issue. To say that, for instance, you spent the last 18 months highlighting, promoting, giving a platform to anti-Israel voices, and just never or almost never or accidentally giving a platform to anyone who's anti-Hamas and pro-Israel.
Literally not anything that was said. Rogan never said that.
Seems to me to be a major failing. And I just wanted to call it out because it's something I see. And I think a lot of other people see it and are equally concerned about it. But as I say, on issues like MMA fighting or anything else, people would notice there was something strange going on if guests were turning up who didn't know what they were talking about. And I submit that when you get pseudo-historians on, talking, for instance, about Churchill, and claiming that Adolf Hitler wasn't openly anti-Semitic in the 1930s.
Not at all what Daryl Cooper said. Daryl Cooper literally said he wasn't as public about his anti-Semitism in the early 1930s because at that time it was not near as popular as the late 1930s. Daryl Cooper never once said, oh, Hitler wasn't openly anti-Semitic. Never said that.
But that Winston Churchill was the cause of the Second World War.
Also never said that. And I went back and I've listened to the entire Tucker Carlson interview today with Daryl Cooper, which is where a lot of this Daryl Cooper controversy stems from. I went back and listened to that today. What Daryl Cooper said on that point that he just made is that he might be the reason that World War II was more than an invasion of Poland, which is a debatable topic. Debate him on it. You know, I don't think I would agree with that. But he didn't say that Churchill caused World War II. That's not what he said. It's not even a little bit what he said. You can't even misinterpret that to make it what Douglas Murray just said. It's just a complete. It's not a misinterpretation or a straw man. It's just a lie. It's just not true.
I would submit you are entering very dangerous territory if you leave such ideas out there and leave them out unchallenged. So I'm all for the debate.
And also on the unchallenged thing, the Tucker Carlson Daryl Cooper interview went more viral than almost any other interview I've seen in the last probably 5 or 6 years. I mean, it was stupid viral. So to say that that point of view was unchallenged, one, is insane. And two, and Dave Smith made this point on the Rogan podcast, I don't think there's any lack of teaching that Hitler was the bad guy of World War II. There's not a lack of that teaching. So it's just a dishonest lie.
But what I see in certain realms of the right is not actually a debate.
Now let's go to the UK where the...
Okay, yeah, now they switch subjects. So, yeah, and, you know, I was hoping Douglas Murray would at least come on and say, hey, I came in too hot at Joe, which he did. He was a ass of himself. He made an ass of himself on Rogan's podcast. And I do think, I was watching Breaking Points on this today, and I do tend to agree with it. I think this debate will go down for a long time in this topic, in this sphere. I think it'll go down that this is the point where Douglas Murray really made himself just look like an ass, you know? And the other funny thing about that debate is that, and he's made this point on here, where you need to have more experts on, and he was talking, he started that conversation with saying Daryl Cooper's not a World War II historian. You need to have experts on. But the funny thing about that was that Douglas Murray, one, couldn't remember his name, had never listened to his content, didn't know his arguments, and didn't know what he was saying. But then he's going to make the appeal to authority that you need to have experts on when he's talking about someone that not only is he not an expert on, he just doesn't know about him. So, I mean, yeah, this was just insane. I was hoping he would come on here, apologize, or at least try to make himself more clear in his arguments, make an actual argument, but he just didn't. So that's all I got for you today, guys. Like, share, subscribe, do everything that you know you need to do, and I'll catch y'all next time.